What's up, everybody? It's the Wednesday edition of the NBA Exchange. I'm your host, Dexter Henry. And as usual, there's a lot to talk about in the world of basketball, even mixing in with some other areas like video games, where a WNBA athlete made history. We also have Game 4 of the NBA Finals tonight. It's a big one with the Suns up 2-1. It's going to be interesting how that's going to go and how you might want to bet on this game. And also, Team USA won an exhibition game, but have they righted the ship? We'll be discussing all that in today's edition of the NBA Exchange. One of the most popular video games that excites everybody every year, basketball heads and video game heads, is NBA 2K. NBA 2K22 will drop on September 10th, so you know everyone's excited about that. But one of the first major announcements that comes every summer is the announcement of who is going to be on the cover. This year on the cover will be Luka Doncic. He is the cover athlete. There's also a special edition cover with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kevin Durant, and Dirk Nowitzki. But the absolute showstopper, major headline surrounding 2K on the cover this year is a woman. That woman is Candace Parker, the Chicago Sky star of the WNBA, becomes the first woman to ever grace the cover of NBA 2K. And this is a great moment for women in sports. This is a great moment for the league. NBA 2K has done an excellent job of showcasing the WNBA over the past couple of seasons within their game. But finally, we see a female athlete on the cover. And Parker knows exactly how big this is. She spoke with Bloomberg about this, and she said, it's a step in the right direction. Being able to see women on the cover, visible in leadership positions, it helps not just in sport, but also just in the boardroom, in business, or everything else. Parker, absolutely right on this one. Great job by NBA 2K getting this done. Hopefully in the future, we get to see more women athletes in different sports on different covers. But kudos to NBA 2K for getting this done with Candace Parker. Big game tonight in NBA Finals. Suns have a 2-1 lead. It's Game 4. Bucks are at home. They are looking for a win to even things up. But when we talk about the finals, it's not just about watching the games and analyzing it. There are a lot of people who also like to bet on these games, and they want to win some money. So let me see if I can help you do that, or at least offer my advice on that if I can. Now, the line in this game is the Bucks favorite, -4.5. The over-under here is 220. I would stay away from the over-under. Scores in this NBA Finals have been right around that mark, which is exactly what the betting houses want to do. I'm going to stay away. Last game hit exactly at 220, that 120-100 blowout win from the Bucks. Stay away from the over-under here. Now, in terms of the line, I like the Bucks to win tonight. Still like the Suns to win this series, but I like the Bucks to even things up. I think they're riding the momentum of Giannis, who's playing extremely well, back-to-back 40-point games. We'll get to that later. The role players looked really good in Game 3. I don't want to get too high off that and think that they'll shoot as well as they did in Game 3, but I think they still will perform well. I expect the Suns to make some adjustments. I do not think we'll see a 20-point blowout the way we saw in Game 3, but I can see the Suns winning by 5 points, the Bucks winning by 5 points or more here in this contest. Give me the Bucks -4.5. I like them in this contest for sure. Now, in terms of some of the other bets that I would look at around this game and for the futures, looking at some prop bets here. Giannis Antetokounmpo, over 34.5 points. This is at +115. What you got to like about this is Giannis has been hot. He's been killing it in games 2 and 3. Both of those games, 40-point plus games. He's getting whatever he wants. He's dominating in the paint. He's looking like a more athletic, modern-day Shaq here. He's averaging 34 points for the series. So you see the betting houses did there. They have the number right around there. But here's why I like it. So it's tantalizing, folks. Let's say that. It's at least tantalizing because it's right around his average, and you've watched the past 2 games, and you've seen him score over 40 points. I don't think the Suns have an answer for him, especially if we see DeAndre Ayton get in foul trouble again like we did in Game 3. I think that Giannis is a good bet to at least throw a couple dollars on here where you can at least go for him to score 35 points. Maybe he doesn't get the 40, but I like him to get around that 35-point mark. All you got to do is put down 100 to win 115. Odds are not great here, folks, but I think this is one of the more solid bets you can take the way Giannis has dominated against the Suns, particularly in the last 2 games. Now, one of the other prop bets I like, if you like the Bucks to win this contest, like I do, and that's where I put my money in terms of betting the spread. Maybe you want to hedge that bet. Good way to go. Look at this prop. Suns to win by 3+ points, plus 185. Not great odds again, but they're decent enough. $100 down to win 185. Here's why I like this if you like the Suns to win. The Suns have been extremely well executing in clutch. That has a lot to do with Chris Paul. We know how he stabilizes their team. They make the right decisions down the stretch. So if it is a close game, they can stretch it out with good plays down the stretch. You could like them to win by 3 or more points. I think this is a pretty safe bet to take. You could throw a couple dollars on this. It's decent odds. Again, not really amazing, but Suns to win by 3+ points, plus 185. I don't think you could go wrong there. Now, one future bet to look at, we talked about earlier in the series about the finals MVP and who you might want to throw some dollars on. Well, look, right now, the way Giannis has played the last 2 games, I talked about the 34 points per game, 14 rebounds per game, just under 5 assists per game, and he's shooting 63%, killing it right now. You probably look, he's not winning the series, but there's a chance, especially if the Bucks win tonight, maybe trend to winning some more games and they do win the series, he could win the MVP. The odds for Giannis to win the MVP right now is at plus 240. That's decent enough for you to maybe throw some money. If they win tonight and Giannis has another huge game, those odds are going to go down. Chris Paul is still the odds-on favorite. So if you're looking for somebody else that you might want to be able to win some money on, look at Giannis. He's balling out right now. Why not? So I like the Bucks to win tonight. If you're going to bet the spread, that minus 4.5. I like Giannis Antetokounmpo over 34.5 points at that plus 115. Like the Suns to win by 3+ points. If you want to hedge that bet with the Bucks winning the game at plus 185. Giannis to win Finals MVP. Hey, got to get on that now. Got to get the good going while the bets are still here to be made. That plus 240 is one you don't want to let get away. There's been a lot of talk about Team USA basketball over the past few days. And, you know, people only care about Team USA basketball when they actually lose. If they win, it's whatever. They're supposed to win. But we're going to get into that. We are going to get into Game 4 of the NBA Finals. It's Wednesday, so you know what time it is. It's NBA With Nuance with my man, Jarod Hector. Jarod here joining me to talk about all of that. Jarod, what's up, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing good. Just trying to, make sure people aren't wilding out too much about Team USA basketball.
Wow.
But we're here to bring them some nuance.
That's right. You know how that goes. Folks, I say it every Wednesday. No hot takes here, all right? No hot nothing. Save all that hot sauce and hot everything else. Them other whack-ass shows you watch on them other networks. We give you nuance here.
Nuance here. Now, look, I think there's a nuanced discussion to be had around Team USA basketball. So let's set the scene for everyone here. Team USA basketball, they lost 2 exhibition games in a row, back-to-back, one to Nigeria, then they lost to Australia, but then they won against Argentina, 108-80 last night. So, a nice, strong blowout win. And before we get into everything else, Jarod, got to ask the question that's there. You're hearing a lot of this talk. Team USA has now righted the ship. Have they?
I mean, it's, again, it's like with the NBA Finals, right? Phoenix wins the first 2 games, series over, they're going to sweep them. It's like, yo, man, why do we do this stuff? Like, let things play out. Now, I will say the way in which Team USA lost their first 2 games were concerning, right? They weren't blowouts, but they were close games, and it was because their inability to close down the stretch, right? Which tells me that as a team, they're not they haven't coalesced yet. And of course, how could they? They've been in training camp for a week. These dudes have been together for 1 week. Of course, they don't know how to play off each other yet. It's going to take time to build. And I think that, when we look at how Team USA is doing things going forward, I think they need to look at restructuring the entire program, Dexter, and really focusing on how do we put everybody into 2-year Olympic runs, right? So every 4-year window, and then how do we keep a certain core, add on, move on, that new core becomes the next guy to move on to the second Olympics, then you have a new young core coming in from the bottom. I just think that was the original plan when Colangelo did this, but stuff is faded over time. And, we have a team right now that, hasn't righted any ship quite yet. I'm sure, look, these are the best basketball players in the world, so they'll play their way into understanding one another, but there are concerning things. And when they get into matchups that are against really good teams in the world and they're close, some of those deficiencies are going to show.
they're definitely going to show. And I think we saw that in the first two exhibition games for all the points that you mentioned. But a question also has to be asked, what is wrong with Team USA? Because there's a lot of things that people have spoken about, including roster construction, which I know how you feel about the roster of this team heading into the Olympics. I know how I felt too. I was not too high on this roster in the way it's constructed. But what do you think are the problems with Team USA right now?
Who's the point guard of this team?
There's no pure point guard in this team. The default answer would be Damian Lillard, but he's more of a scoring point guard.
Correct. So we're watching the NBA Finals, right, Dexter? And what do I always say about the Phoenix Suns that I trust and like about them? In a close situation, I know Chris Paul is going to get them into a good shot on offense, right? He's going to organize and get everybody where they belong and get them into the set they need to get to. Make or miss is a different story, but they're going to not turn the ball over. Who's doing that on Team USA? That's my first thing. Second thing, who are the real, true, legit shooters on this team that you can count on? Like, yeah, that's an elite shooter. I know he's knocking it down just about, more oftentimes than not. Okay, we know we got KD. We know we got Dame. People think Bradley Beal is. Like, okay, I'll give you that maybe. Is it Jason Tatum? Is it Zach LaVine? Who else is on that team?
Kevin Love.
Right. and let's get to the big man rotation. Who are the bigs on this team?
We got Draymond. We got Bam Adebayo, Kevin Love, as I mentioned before. Yeah. Jeremy Grant, if you want to count him as such. Those are your bigs right there.
How are we feeling about those bigs?
I mean,
right. Right. So this is my problem, right? Like this, I just from a roster perspective, these guys don't complement one another, and it just seemed like. And look, I understand that guys who were committed backed out, right? Steph Curry said, "No, I'm not going." A couple other guys, and then we're getting this whole thing about, well, Jarod, don't worry because Chris Middleton and Booker and Drew Holiday will be here as soon as the finals are over. Ah, yes, the cavalry is coming after they've played the most grueling, intense basketball of their lives, right? They're going to just show up in Tokyo and be, yeah, we're ready to rock and roll. Like, nah, like this roster is not constructed well, Dexter. And what I would like to see is we need to look at the pool of players committed to Team USA as a whole, not just the Olympic team, but the Team USA portal, if you will. I think this needs to be the 25 and under crowd. That needs to be the bulk of the people on here. This needs to be your John Morant, Zion, Triple J, Zach LaVine, who is here. Those types of players, right? We talked about DeJounte Murray on the Spurs before we started the show. Young guys who have shown that they can play at a high level in this league. And what you do there is like, okay, when you make the first Olympic team, like, right, you are now committed for 2 Olympics, right? So that 4-year cycle, and then everything that happens in between from this Olympics to the next, the World Championships, FIBA World Cup, all that stuff in between. Cool. And again, every year you're adding that next wave, that next crop. So by the time the second Olympics comes around, those guys who were rookies in their first Olympics have had an Olympics, FIBA World Championships, all that stuff. Now, round 2 of the Olympics, oh yeah, they're veterans now. And then the younger guys you bring in under them, they can school them on, okay, here's how we do this. You see, and you kind of build that sort of that pipeline. I think that's a way better way to do this than how we're doing it right now. Hoping on guys like Steph and KD. And it's like, this is KD's like 12th year in Olympic basketball. Like, this is insanity.
Right. It's almost like, what are we expecting here? And I think expectations for a transition here is something that we see from fans. As I said at the top, a lot of basketball fans don't really care until this team loses. If they win, they're expected to win. We're supposed to have the best players in the world. We're supposed to dominate. The whole American exceptionalism comes out to play.
You know how I feel about that
with the fans. But I think one of the things that can't be ignored is the impact of globalization, and then also how the game has just expanded across the world. There's been better players across the world, and across the world, these teams play together. We saw this with Australia. A lot of these guys have played together for years. Even if they didn't have long training camps, they played together for a while. So what do you see in terms of the impact of globalization on the game? And should we alter our expectations?
Okay. Rudy Gobert, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic. Those are Joel Embiid, DeAndre Ayton, right? Those 5 names I just mentioned, right? 5 guys who are somewhere in the top, 25 in basketball, right? Give or take. None of them are from the United States. Those are all international players I just mentioned, right? And those are some of the best players in the world and certainly best players in the NBA. Like, yeah, that 92 Dream Team, we are not going to see that ever again, where they steamrolled everybody by massive double digits. That ain't happening anymore. The game is global now, truly, and the best players in the world are coming from everywhere, not just the United States. And so this idea that we're just supposed to dominate everybody, no, not if we just throw some dudes together. We're not. If we have a true camp and a true pipeline and development, we should be fine and we should be among the top in the world every year and should have a chance to compete for gold every year. But this idea that we're going to just waltz through just because we got all the NBA dudes, no. Like you watch on Twitter, oh, I can't believe this team lost to this team when they got dudes who play behind them in the NBA. Yeah, you know why? Because those programs, they have an actual system. Think about this. I said Team USA has been together a week of training camp, then they started playing some exhibition games. Wouldn't it have been better if the bulk of the Team USA roster was full of guys who either didn't make the playoffs or were got bounced in the first round, right? So they were done late May, early June. You start training camp end of June. Oh, look, end of June to mid-July, you got what, four weeks or whatever, right? Like now we can actually build and get guys playing. Like Zion Williamson, this dude hasn't played basketball since May. Why isn't he part of this? Right? Like these are the things I'm talking about. And so this idea that we're just going to throw together, our guys and names, like, of course, Dame Lillard and Kevin Durant, names, all incredible players, but none of those guys have played together. The only people who have actual experience playing together are KD and Draymond as a unit. Nobody else. And you can't build that kind of chemistry in a week.
You cannot. Absolutely. It's been a week. Got to remember that. It was all good a week ago. We thought this team was going to win and roll and all this stuff, and now we're seeing that they're not. You talked about the changes to roster construction. How likely would you say, Jarod, that it is that USA Basketball actually does something like you suggested? I feel like there has to be some change. There's always these points with USA Basketball where I'm talking about as people who root for the American team, we are pushed to some change, whether it was bringing the pros in 92. Is this now this point, and do you think they'll actually make change in terms of how they construct the roster?
So, the old adage, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's some truth in that, but there's also the flip side of that is what I think is the most dangerous phrase in the English language. Well, this is how we've always done things, right? That gets you into trouble. So if this team wins the gold, they're not going to change anything. Oh, it's fine. We write ourselves when it matters most. No. If this team loses or fails to medal, that will for sure spark change. And we'll see what happens. Like I said this to you, it would not shock me if this team does not win gold. I mean, I kind of, it's not a hot take, but I kind of was like, if they don't medal, I wouldn't be that surprised either. Again, I just do not like the construction of this roster. And the other piece that we don't talk nearly enough about is FIBA basketball rules, right? And we saw some of that come out from some of the players. Luka Doncic is something very interesting when he made his transition from the EuroLeague to the NBA. And he said his rookie year, it's actually easier to score in the NBA. It's much more physical in the EuroLeague. And, people kind of were like, what's this guy talking about? And we kind of see what he does, right? The NBA calls fouls very loosely, shall we say, right? FIBA basketball, they kind of let a lot of stuff go, and it takes a while for players to adjust. Well, listen, if you still adjusting in the medal round, or in elimination play, you're going home, right? So I think that's a big part of this. So I think we're gonna have to really work on doing more of a lengthier training camp. And again, it should be the U25 should be the core of what this team is made up of.
I agree. You're not going to hear any argument from me. You said if they don't win the gold medal, then we could most likely see changes. I would happen to agree with that. So then the question, of course, is, will they win the gold medal in Tokyo? Let's put our betting hats on here. Would you bet on Team USA winning a gold medal in Tokyo?
I mean, I haven't looked at the odds, but I imagine they're probably favorites still. So I don't know if you're getting that great of a number. I need to look at it too. Who are the other teams that could beat them, and what do they look like, right? Like Australia obviously beat them in the exhibition play. Nigeria did as well. I wouldn't. Nigeria is not someone who I think would. But look, the other thing too is you have to look at it like this. A lot of these other international teams have NBA players too. not the names that the USA have, right? So they're going to want to come out and prove themselves against Kevin Durant, Damian Lillard, all these guys. Like, yo, I could show out too and be on this stage, because those guys, think about it, are playing for NBA contracts in many cases, right? If I put on a good show in the Olympics, someone might be like, hey, let me get this dude. Let me do it. These guys are playing with nothing to lose, right? Everyone expects the United States to win a gold. If they don't, it's catastrophe. Everybody else, it's like, if we win, that's crazy. We can come into this game, no pressure, guns blazing. And we saw that when they take it to Team USA, they don't have the requisite combined experience as a unit. Yeah, individually, these guys all know how to handle it. But as a team, that level isn't built yet. You saw it late in games. Yo, you're overpassing. You had that shot open. Take it. Why can't you get into a set? Like, what are you guys doing? It's unfamiliar because this collection has not played together.
We will see. They will have a couple more exhibition games, including one in a rematch against Australia later this week. So we'll see if they've righted the ship. But we're going to transition to the NBA Finals. When you look at this NBA Finals Game 4 coming up tonight, Jarod, look, all the talk has been about Giannis, and I think rightfully so. He has been killing it. I talked earlier in the show about the numbers: 34 points, 14 rebounds, just under 5 assists, shooting 63% from the floor. Is this the best version we have seen of Giannis? You know, it almost is scary if we think that there's another level that he can reach. But the way he's being used in these finals and the way he's executing, particularly dominating in the paint, is this the best Giannis that we've seen so far?
Yes, given his current skill set, this is the best version of Giannis. And I think what we're seeing is not so much how he's being used, is that Giannis has decided, oh no, I'm just going to do what works, right? We talk about it all the time. There was this, we saw it early in the playoffs, particularly in the Brooklyn Nets series. Giannis was out here acting like he was a wing player, like how Kevin Durant is. I'm going to pull up and shoot threes. I'm going to shoot mid-rangers, all this stuff. No, my guy, that is not your game. You are prime Shaq. You are Joel Embiid. You are a big who can punish in the interior and kill and attack the rim. They got no answer. When you settle for jumpers, that is a win for the defense. Whether or not they go in or not, they don't care, because they know the law of averages says you will miss, far more than you make. So we'll take that. You get to the restricted area, that's almost a guaranteed bucket, and we can't have that. But Giannis is like, oh, they really can't stop me at the rim. I'm gonna keep doing that, and he's killing them. And you know, he's making the right passes, kicking it out to guys. He's playing well. Look, 2-1 right now. If the finals, no matter what the finals, end result is, he's the front runner for Finals MVP right now. I mean, he's been the best player on the floor.
He's been the best player on the floor. I talked about this earlier in the show. He is still not the odds-on favorite in terms of betting odds to win Finals MVP. But I told you guys before, plus 240 right now. Might want to get in on that.
For sure.
That's a whole nother story. Now, Game 4 tonight. Suns up 2-1. Bucks looking to even this thing up. Who do you like winning this Game 4, and what do you think the keys are for both the Bucks and the Suns if they are to get a win in this Game 4?
So for Milwaukee, they need to just do exactly what they did in Game 3, right? They came out with the right intensity defensively, and they got Giannis into spots that mattered. Drew Holiday showed aggressiveness. He was making shots. Now, whether that continues or not, we don't know. I mean, when Giannis is doing 40 and 17 and Drew's giving you that, it don't matter. I mean, Chris Middleton, even though he was like, oh, you know, a great game, he was 19, 8, and 6. He was excellent, right? So if they're doing that, they're going to be really, really tough to beat. If you're on the Phoenix side, you've got to vary your looks up on Giannis, right? You can't give him a steady dose of anything, and you have to protect DeAndre Ayton from foul trouble, because that Dario Saric injury is massive, okay? Because when Ayton is off the floor and you got to go to Frank Kaminsky, that ain't good, man. Like, you're losing them minutes big time, which now means Ayton's got to play 40-plus minutes a night, which means more likelihood of getting into foul trouble, right? So they've got to do a better job of building a little bit of a wall, varying up the looks. I said this on another program. Turn this into a Pat Connaughton, Bobby Portis, who else am I missing? And PJ Tucker series, right? Let those guys be the ones to take all the threes. And if they beat you because they knock down 15 threes combined, well, you're going to lose the game anyway. So it doesn't matter, right? But like, that's what I'm doing. I am forcing Milwaukee away from its number one option, which is Giannis bludgeoning me with a hammer. Nope, can't have that. Now, easier said than done because, again, as I mentioned, it's hard to stop Giannis, but you've got to force them into their third and fourth options. Make Pat Connaughton shoot the ball 12, 15 times from three. He probably doesn't want to do that. Neither does Tucker, neither does Bobby Portis. Make them do that.
It's going to be interesting to see how the role players fare in tonight's game. Got a prediction for tonight's game, Jarod?
I do think tonight's game is closer. I don't think it's a blowout. And as I always say, in a close game, I just like Phoenix because I like Chris Paul, right? Like, I know Chris is going to get Phoenix into a good possession, and he's likely not going to turn the ball over. Like, I'm going to give Phoenix a slight edge tonight and say they win a close one. Would it shock me, though, if the Bucks win again and it goes back to Phoenix set up 2-2? No, but I'm going to lean Phoenix in a close one tonight.
All right, leaning Phoenix in a close one tonight. I like the Bucks to win tonight, but again, wouldn't shock me if it went the other way. That's Jarod. You see how we got through this segment? No hot takes, folks,
no hot takes,
at all
man.
whatsoever. Thanks for joining me, my man.
All right, man, I appreciate it. You know, the only thing hot right now is outside. That humidity killer out here in these New York City streets.